So if possible, I think Rodney and Ken that it would be, do you want to be able to take questions immediately after each segment or wait for everything to the end so we don't get bogged down in answering questions during our presentations? What do you want to do?
Um,
Go
I,
ahead.
I'm quite happy to take some questions. I mean, if I'm not clear, I mean, I would welcome questions that would allow me to enable me to clarify things. But if you've got major questions or questions that are outside of the thing that we're currently talking about, and we can, we should leave that to the end. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, I'm going to start off by sharing my screen as soon as I've got the right one up here.
Rodney, while you're doing that, where are you going to post the recording?
It will be posted on YouTube. We now have a club YouTube account. I haven't used it yet, but it will be on YouTube. And I will make the link available. If we put it on the club, one, we can probably make it public, but okay. All right, this is the current set of rules for submitting to critiques. The image content and eligibility. Basically, we're saying that it has to be your work. You can't you can't borrow bits from the from other people or off of the internet. When in the definitions of the different categories talk about how much you can manipulate things. The main things we're going to be concentrating today are on the size, resolution, aspects of things, and the naming conventions. This isn't the class where we're going to teach you how to edit your photos. Just the things that are required for meeting for sending things to the critique, so that they're in a format that will work and will not involve me sending them back and saying, please do this, that, and the other, and resubmit. Okay, so in the image size, resolution, color space section, the basic thing to bear in mind here is that the format in which it's going to be seen by the judge is in a PowerPoint slide presentation. Each slide will be a 16:9 ratio, which is the ratio of most modern monitors and televisions. Okay. And that will be a black background, so any part of the slide that's not covered by your picture will be black, and that you need to be aware of that, because if you've got pictures with black edges, then the edge is going to be indistinguishable from the background, which is why the second thing there is talking about key lines, and this is putting a small border around the image to distinguish the edge of the image from the background. and this is particularly important when you have a lot of black in the on the edges of your image, especially in monochrome images. One of the things that you'll understand if you've watched some of the critiques, when you do put a key line in, you should choose the color of it carefully. Judges tend to like key lines that complement the image. Don't clash with the image. On the size of the image, there are no restrictions on pixel width or height. So you can send in an image of any size. The thing to remember, and this is where I can get confusing very easily, I'll try not to. The thing to remember is that it's going to be displayed probably on a screen that is 1920 pixels wide and 1080 pixels high. That's what the judge is going to see. Some of this will be covered by your image. All your image will be contained in there, but it may be narrower or it may be shorter. So the important thing about this is that if your image is either bigger than that or smaller than that, it's going to be resized into the PowerPoint display and possibly to some extent by the software that's displaying the video driver software that's displaying it. So resizing of images, that's done by this software that's not under your control. You're going to have no control over it. So the further away from 1920 by 1080 you get, the more either compaction or expansion you're going to undergo. Expanding images, upsizing images is where you tend to really get into trouble. So I would recommend not sending in pictures that are smaller than 1920 pixels wide or 1080 pixels high. Using the dimension that governs in the case of your image. Landscapes will be by the width and portraits will be by the height. Downsizing, you're probably not going to be too much affected, but don't submit very small images because they will be resized up, they'll get noisy. And the resizing software is going to have to invent pixels. So
and then the judge will say your photo's soft too.
Yeah, the photo's soft and it's very noisy. And Mary, if you don't mind me using you as an example, Mary sent some very small images in for the January critique, and I pointed this out to her because they looked really dreadful when they were sized up. So she resubmitted the images, a larger version of the images, and one of them scored a 9. It would not have scored a 9 otherwise.
Thank you, Rodney.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So it is an important thing to bear in mind. The file format, it must be a JPEG. The normal suffix is .jpj. It doesn't matter whether it's uppercase or lowercase.
JPG.
JPG. I mean, thank you. And
English thing.
The file size which is not directly related to the image size. The file size will be affected by the amount of compression that's done in creating the JPEG image, and that's the thing we're going to be addressing in the sizing thing. But we limit it to 2 megabytes, and this is just to serve a number of purposes. One is if you have very large files, you're going to have difficulty sending them because some of the email programs will not allow you to send more than a certain size. And also we have a space consideration in storing the images that are sent. So and then on the color space, the sRGB, you can use whatever color space you want, but sRGB is the one that is preferred. It normally translates well to, to different systems and so on. So you're not likely to run into color issues with the judge seeing different colors than you're seeing. So
I ask a question.
yes.
I don't want to sound stupid, but when I upload my pictures from my phone to the computer, aren't they JPEGs?
Yeah, if your image is already a JPEG, then that's fine. If you have raw files or TIFFs or whatever your images normally are when you download them from your camera, then you're going to need to process them, and the file that you send us has to be a JPEG. It doesn't matter how your picture originates, what format it's in. The final file that you submit to us must be a JPEG version.
So
That's
to make things clearer, when I submit a picture that I've taken out of my camera to the site, why do I have to do all this other stuff if I don't have to alter it?
If you don't have to order it, you don't have to do anything else except to make sure that it conforms to the rules. And one of the things is the size of the file, and one of the things is the I lost it.
How do you know the size? How do you downsize it?
Well, we're going to talk
Upside.
about that.
That's what
okay.
that's what the
That's what
next
we're gonna talk
segment's
about.
going to be about.
Okay,
That's-
because I'm not real clear. I just thought when I
yeah.
take the picture, I upload it as a JPEG and
Well,
Yeah.
another thing is that some of the newer, especially iPhones, you can take your photos in RAW. So you can't assume that
Okay.
everything is JPEG
Right.
coming off your camera. You need to understand these things
Yeah.
okay.
to not run
Oh.
afoul of the rules.
I don't pay attention to that, so.
No?
Some of the newer
Why we're having
iPhones,
this class.
some of the newer iPhones also have a format called HEIC,
Right.
which is a smaller format. It's less megapixels,
Right.
and that if you have that option, that's an option on the phone. You can have photos in JPEG or HEIC. You can select that. If you select HEIC, then it needs to or should be converted to JPEG.
So should the RAW, if you take it in RAW on an iPhone.
Definitely with the raw
Right.
file.
So that's what we're going to talk about today.
Right. Okay, the categories in the scored digital image critiques are pictorial, monochrome, special subject, and artistic expression. The definitions of which follow later in the rules, and we will not be going into in detail today because that's not what this class is about. The naming conventions, this is important because we have some automated stuff in the in putting the files together for the score sheets and so on that are based on these conventions. We basically the first part of the file name, and this is the name of the file that you send. You need to make sure that the file is named in this way. The first character is a letter denoting which category it's in, a P, an M, an S, and an A. Then a space, then an open paren, and then your name. Close paren, a space, and the title of the photo. That's
And what
it.
is special subject?
Special subject is the special subject is a thing that varies from critique to critique. The subject matter for the special subject category will be published for each critique. There is some stuff on it later, further down in the thing. Like this coming critique, the special subject is macro. So you have to, so everything that's in the special subject category this time will be a macro shot. And so, you know, you know, I don't remember what it was last month.
But just remember that this entire, what Rodney's showing you here is, we've sent it out before and it's available on the website. So you need to, for each critique, familiarize yourself with it so that you do get stuff in the right category when you submit it. So then you'll know what the special subject is each time.
Okay.
We don't make these things just for our health.
Right. So the important thing is the spaces and the open and closed parens, because the formulae in the worksheet divides things up based on those using those as delimiters. The image eligibility and resubmission, that depends on you know, on the, if you score less than an 8, you can fix it and resubmit it, or resubmit it without fixing it. We have had people who have had low scores who resubmitted it unchanged in another critique and got high scores. So judging,
Subjective.
unfortunately, is subjective.
Yeah.
Very. If you do get a score of 8 or above, then you cannot resubmit it in any subsequent periodic critique.
But you've got bragging rights.
Yeah, you have bragging rights. That's what you get, and then you would tend to choose from among your higher scoring images to enter the year-end competition.
Right.
The non-scored category, I mean, you know, basically you can submit pretty much anything as long as it's your work. And if you submit in the non-scored category, you can take what the input you get from the judge and make changes as necessary and submit it into a later scored critique. And the naming convention there is just basically is NS to show that it's non-scored, and the title. The non-scored category is anonymous. The only people who see the name, who can associate the name with the image, are the digital coordinator and the submitter. Okay, once you have created your image, your JPEG, and you know, and with the appropriate title, the appropriate size, and everything, you need to email it as an attachment. We prefer one email with all the files you're submitting attached. If your email system but has a very low tolerance for the size of images, you know, you can send it as multiple emails. It just makes life more difficult for the digital coordinator, which currently is me. So I have a vested interest here. And one of the things that Ken's going to be addressing, because it's been an issue for a number of people on with the Apple Mail, you need to make sure that your mail system doesn't adjust the size of your image for you because it's sending it out as an email. Some email systems do that. You need to make sure that you have parameters set to make sure that it sends the picture at the size that you want it sent. So actual size, full size, those tend to be the terms that you need to look for. And the Wednesday before the critique, 5 p.m. on the Wednesday before the critique is the cutoff time. With the advent of the new website, we have new email addresses that are associated with that, and the new email address for submitting critiques is critique-entries@cameraclublwv.org. If you do accidentally send it to the old email address for a while, it will be forwarded. Eventually, that will be closed down.
Rodney, I think the current website has the old address on there.
No,
Last time I checked.
Yes, Louise has, I pointed that out to Louise, and she has submitted a new version of the rules.
I fixed
Okay,
this. I sent it to Jack and he's putting it up.
Right. She has, yeah, she submitted it to the web team and they will put it up. I believe the address is correct on the rules pointed to by the flyer. And then we have the definition of the different special subjects for the different critiques. There's night, macro, minimalism, so on and so on, and the definitions are there. We have the rules for what constitutes artistic expression. Basically, it's the category that allows you to manipulate your image. The portions of your image, the stuff that makes up the image must all be stuff that you've done as a photograph. You can't take stuff from elsewhere or stuff from different mediums and so on, but you can do virtually any sort of manipulation that you wish. And those are the rules. Those are the rules. Okay. Now we switch over to, this is the handout, and I am going to go immediately to the
Resize.
to the Windows portion of it, because that's what I'm demonstrating and I'm in control at the moment. So let me see what we have here. Okay. I'm going to show you. Let me back off of that a moment. We right click on an image, okay, and then we can select photos by going to open with and select photos. For most cases, for many people, that will be the default. So in that case, you just need to click on the image or right click and click open. But if you to get to photos, to guarantee getting to photos, if you right click on the image, click on open with and select photos, the image will open in photos. I'm going to make this larger. At the top of the screen, you'll see a bunch of icons, and followed by 3 dots, which, if you hover over them, says "See More," and you click on that, and you come down to Resize Image. You click on that, and this will open this little window, which enables you to change the size of your image if you wish to. You don't have to. But
So how do
can-
you change it?
Well,
if you want to change it, which I would probably do in this case, as you notice, this particular image is 15,000 pixels wide, which is and 6,000, almost 6,000 pixels high. Which is one of the reasons, and it's currently a 49 megabyte file, which is a little large. It's a little larger than a 2 megabyte
most
file.
email programs will reject that one.
Yes. I tried to email it to my wife so I could use it to demonstrate on her machine on Windows 10, and it wouldn't do it. So we don't have this image over there. But let's not change it for the moment. We can look at the quality slider here. If we slide it up to 100%, it's going, even though it's currently at 49, it's going to compact it a little more. It'll take it down to 45.5 megabytes. If we take it down to 10%, it actually would fit.
You got lucky.
Yes, I know. But normally I would take this down so I can demonstrate. I can take it down to 1080, and that says it's too wide. So let's do this one instead and make it 1920. And so then it would not be resized by the process of putting it into the PowerPoint slideshow.
I'm in Photoshop right now, and I have the size thing different, and it's that I'm over the 2 megabytes. And
Okay, Penny,
Yeah.
we haven't gotten to the Photoshop
Yeah.
section of
W-
this
Oh, okay, because I thought
class
Yeah,
today.
showing
no.
that here now, but
We will be demonstrating the Photoshop.
okay, because I called it up
Later.
on the other computer to see
Yeah.
what size it was. So,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah, no,
Thank you.
just hang in there.
okay, I'm
And-
worried.
Okay, and as you see, if when I do it 1920 wide and so on, even at 100% quality, it's less than a megabyte. So if you make your images down to where they won't be resized, they probably won't need to be resized for the file size. It will probably be under the 2 megabyte limit. And then when you've got it the way you want it, you hit save, and it will.
Rodney, in this case, wouldn't you prefer to use that slider and get it down to the 1.9 so that it's as close to the 2?
Well, yes, I mean,
Yeah.
probably I would keep it as well. I probably
Why
wouldn't
should
leave
you?
it at the original size. I would probably reduce it some, and then do the rest of the manipulation with the JPEG slider. I'm going to do another image as well. So it's,
Okay. My point is just that you really wouldn't want it to.
yeah,
If
I
you
just
have
I,
a choice at 1.9, you wouldn't want to be satisfied with 744.7 kilobytes.
right. So anyway, you do the save, you do the normal, sort of navigating through here to get to the file folder that you want to store it in. This is the point at which you can rename it. If so, let's make it pictorial Rodney Cooper house. And then we hit save, and it will save it. I'm making so now we have this version of it, which, as you can see, is 1920 by 736 pixels, and it's 744 kilobytes in size. Let's go to the other image that I had, which is a picture from the roof of that house. It's taken from the roof of that house of Saddleback Mountain, or part thereof. This image,
Camelback, right?
Camelback Mountain.
So
Sorry,
Saddleback would
Camelback,
be
not
right in your
Saddleback.
backyard.
Camelback, yes, Camelback Mountain. And this picture is 39 megabytes, 80%. Let's bring it up to 90. See what it does. It's 2.2 megabytes. So let's say 86. That's fine. So, you know, you can adjust this slider until you get a size that calculates the size and puts it here. So then you can save, do the renaming. I'm not going to, well, I'm just going to label this test because it's quicker to type. You save it, and then we can close. Come on. Close that and bring up the right one here. We have, you know, this is 1.77 megabytes. Okay. Now, I didn't change the name to what we want the name to be. So I can select this file. If I just want to rename a file, if I got this file, my image, the right size, and it's a JPEG and everything else, everything but the file name is correct. I mean, maybe it's because I just uploaded it from my iPhone. Then I can rename the file before I send it. And the quickest way to do that is to open this. Under Windows 11, rename is not listed there as one of the things that has the rename icon. And you select the rename icon and click on it. It highlights that, and then you can type in P. Okay, and hit enter or return, and there it's done. Now your file is, oh, come on. My computer doesn't want to hit. Oh, this is not a good time for something like this to happen.
What's it doing?
It was ignoring the keyboard. It's not ignoring the keyboard. There it is. It's fine now. Under Windows 11, you can also just select the file, and the rename icon is up in the there, and you can click that instead. But you'll always be able to get it by right-clicking and finding the icon. Okay, now
Rodney, can I comment though? You don't
Yeah.
need to put in the .jpeg when you're naming it. It's gonna show up as a JPEG. So you would just put P Rodney Cooper Mountain, no .jpeg, right?
Well, when you do the rename this way, it, the area that it highlights for you to type over does not include the .jpeg. It will leave that there unless you deliberately select to overwrite that. It will stay there.
That's my point.
I would leave it, and just change the rest of it. Leave the .jpeg there.
That's my
Otherwise, it
point.
might confuse it.
They don't need to type in.
No.
.jpeg. They just type what says in the
Yes,
rules.
right.
Okay.
And when you're doing a save or save as, and when you name the file there, you'll notice you can overwrite the .jpeg stuff. You just put your name in. It will add the .jpg because that is the file type you've selected, and that's in the box underneath the name.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing here and go over to the other computer and start sharing there to demonstrate the differences in Windows 10. Okay.
Yep.
Excuse me one moment. I will disappear. And share screen. Share. Okay, you can see I have the same image up here. Let me just take care of one thing here, otherwise I won't be able to do this. Okay. Again, it's very similar, except for the fact that when you go down to resize image here, you get that. And you can select one of these categories, which give you no choice, or you can define custom dimensions where it will show you the thing there, but it won't show you when you move this thing, it won't show you what you're going to get. So you have to experiment and save a resized copy. And I'm going to say, make that test 1 and save. And now I'm going to go over here and look to see. That was 2.24 megabytes, so it's close. Do we remember what I said that? So the thing you find here is that you need to remember what it was you set it to, because now you want to make it a little bit smaller, and I don't remember what value I set it to, but you'll have if you're going to do it this way on here, you'll have to do some trial and error.
So my advice is upgrade to Windows 11.
Yeah. If your hardware will allow it.
Yes,
Thanks.
I know.
That is why this computer is on Windows 10, is because I can't load Windows 11 onto this computer.
And I know other people are similarly situated, so this is valuable for you to do. Just kidding around. I have a vested interest in Microsoft.
And Apple.
Oops. Test 2.
Do you lose any resolution when you change the pixels?
I'm not changing the pixels. I'm just changing the compression, the quality slider on the JPEG compression. And what that does is when you create a JPEG file, it's going to take the image and it's going to try and make the file smaller. And it does this by selecting areas that are of the same color or very close in color, deciding on which average color of that is going to be and how and what it, you know, and how many pixels in that row are that color. And just so that it just says, you know, 250 pixels, you know, ABCD, ABC as for the color. And so if you do a lot, if you do have to do a lot of compression, then it's going to be average out your colors a lot more. So you're going to lose some information, but not much. It's not, most images you're not going to be able to detect it. But so the higher quality is less compression. It'll be a bigger file, but you adjust it until you get a file of around 2 megabytes. And we say 2 megabytes is the limit. We will actually take maybe 2.2 up to 2.2 or 2.3. You know, because sometimes, you know, you're with your compression choices, particularly in Photoshop, for instance, where you can have 12, 11, 10, 9. You've got specific increments. It might go from 2.2 down to 1.5 with just one increment. So you'd want to stay at the 2.2.
Rod, you may also want to explain that the reason you want to stick as close as you can to the 2 is because putting it into PowerPoint, it has to fit in the PowerPoint presentation. That's where you could see some effect on it visually.
Right. Well, yeah. You've always the size limitation is more about you know, space limitations. You know, keeping files a reasonable size so we're not occupying disk space unnecessarily. The PowerPoint compression is probably based more on the dimensions of the image rather than the size of the file. But anyway, so that's where one place where Windows 10 is different. And then if you want, if you try and do a rename, you right click on it and it doesn't have the Windows 11 icons. You go down and you find the rename button here, and then the rest of it is the same. Okay, so I'm going to get off of this one and I will hand it over to Ken to talk about doing the same sort of thing on the Mac.
And I will share my screen. Okay. So I'm going to start with this image here, which I put into a separate folder, which I would encourage you to do that. If you are entering a critique, you probably want to put all your files, photos that you want to submit in a separate folder so you can go back and find it. So I put this one in a folder and I've called it resizing class. But this example, again, before I get into this, this demonstration on the Mac is for somebody that maybe doesn't have an editing program to edit the photos. And this is a way to resize and rename directly on a Mac using the Preview app, which is common to all Macs. But if you do have an editing program like Photoshop or Lightroom, as we'll get into in a couple of minutes, it's a lot easier to edit the photo and actually resize and rename it in your editing program like Lightroom or Photoshop. Again, this is for people that maybe don't have an editing program, that have a file that they want to submit, and you can do it directly on a Mac. So I'm gonna use this photo as an example. And as you can see here, it's a fairly large photo, 24 megabytes, which we need to get down to something like 2 megabytes. And so if you right click on this, first, if you open this, you open it by right clicking and clicking open with preview. And if preview is normally the default program for opening and viewing photos, but you could change that. And if somebody has changed it to another photo viewer, you could always get back to preview by right clicking on the image and going to open with preview. So here's the image in preview. And let me just mention that there's a little bug in the preview program. I hope I don't confuse it too much, but when I tried doing this process on my computer, I tried working with a JPEG and resizing the JPEG. And for some reason, it wouldn't do that. I tried to resize and it came back to the same size as I started with, which somebody else on the internet has identified as a bug in the program. Just for curiosity, I went to my MacBook laptop, which has an older operating system, and it worked fine. So for those of you with a Mac, you should first try resizing the JPEG, and if it doesn't work, then I'm going to take you to a process where you can actually do this, but you have to first convert it to a different format. So if I go to File on the preview program, what you want to do is go to Export right here. And it's going to bring up this window. And as you can see, it's a JPEG format. I started with a JPEG, and it's going to try to put it into a JPEG format. Now, this will not work for me on this computer with my operating system. My operating system on this computer is Big Sur, one of the later ones. And I think what happened is when they upgraded the operating system, they didn't check to make sure that preview worked properly. And there are a couple of bugs in here. But let me take you through what you have to do if you have a later operating system that will not handle JPEGs directly. What you can do is go down here to Format and save it as a TIFF. And if I save that, this is going to go back into the same folder that I started with, which is called Resizing Class. I'm going to save this image as a TIFF. And if I go back to this folder, here it is as a TIFF, very large file. And what I'm going to do now is to go back and reopen this in preview. And I'm going to go back to the same process, go to File, Export. And this time I'm going to change the TIFF file to a JPEG. So I'm going to go here to Format, go back to JPEG. And very similar to what you do on the PC, there's a slider here called Quality. And underneath that, it shows you the file size. And as you move this slider left or right, you can see the file size is recomputed automatically by the program. And as you move this, if you move this way down, you're going to get a real small file size that's way too small for what we want to present in our critique. So it's you kind of move the slider around until you get to a place that's very close to 2 megabytes. This is 2.1, which I think is fine. So at this point, we're going to convert it to a JPEG format, going back to the same folder that I started with. And here's where you can rename the photo up here. Export as, and you can type right over this. This particular image is a pictorial, so I'm going to name it with a P, with the naming convention that we're supposed to use. I'm going to put my name in here. Name the file. I'll call it Hummingbird. Oops.
Ken types almost as well as I do.
Okay, so 2.1 megabytes, which is close enough. JPEG format, going back to the folder called resizing class, or whatever you name the folder, with the naming convention that you're required to use. Now, this particular program does not put the suffix in, so I'm going to add JPG and save it. And if I go back to the folder, here is the image with the proper name and the appropriate size. Okay. And if I bring that up, here's the downsized image. Pretty much the same as you started with. I really can't see much degradation due to the compression. But it's a much smaller size, and it's the size that we're required, or close to the size that we're required to submit, which is 2 megabytes. Okay. Now on a Mac, the next step is to submit this image. So I'm going to go to my mail program.
Ken, were you going to show how to put a stroke on?
Not yet.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I jumped ahead.
Later.
Okay.
I'm gonna first show how you, one of the pitfalls of trying to send the photo without the right resolution. Okay.
Mm.
So I've put in as a draft of I pre-formatted this email.
Mhm.
This is the old email address, which will still work, right, Rodney? If you use
Yes,
this.
it will forward to the new one.
Okay, this is the old address. Rodney showed you the new address to use. You should probably put the subject as digital entries for whatever critique you're trying to submit to. Okay. And let me minimize this. So you can just drag the image that you downsized now right into the email, and it will show here. Now over here, very important is image size. And you will have something defaulted there based on what you either put in as a default or what your last sent email was. This says medium. But if you look over here at the message size, it downsized this all the way down to 55 kilobytes, which is way, way too small for what we want to present. And there's some choices here. If you go all the way to small, which I think is what some people use for presenting on the internet.
Mm.
It goes all the way down to 30 kilobytes, which is a really, really small image, and it will not look good. If you send it this way, you're going to be very disappointed. Well, Rodney will catch it and he'll tell you. But to avoid having to make Rodney do more work, what you want to do, make sure you do, is put actual size, because that's going to come back and send it at exactly the same size as what you resized it to. So very, very important to make sure you check the image size box over here and make sure that you're sending your images as actual size, okay? And you can check this. If you, for instance, send in images for every category that you're allowed to send it, that's 5 images. And if you send in 5 images, your message size should be something like 10 megabytes, okay? 2 megabytes each. So you can check that to make sure that your images, all your images are being sent at the right size for the critique, okay? I don't know, are there any questions on that? The key is this image size box over here to make sure that you check that and make sure it's actual size.
Do you have to check it for each one that you put into the message, or will it?
No, it's for the message itself. If it's actual size, if you have 5 images that you're going to send in, it'll make sure that each image is actual size.
Okay.
If you put it as something else, like a large, it's going to convert every image that you have in the email to a much smaller size.
Okay, that's my question. I didn't know whether you have to check it for each one. Okay, cool.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
You said something about in the title when you send them in. What did you say?
The title?
In the email, you said put something in the title. I didn't catch that.
Oh, okay. Let me go back again.
It was just recommending that you
It's good.
say,
It's just, you know, if you don't say anything, I think Rodney will figure it out what critique it's for. And
So like March critique would be a good title.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
but I usually name it digital entries for March 27th critique, so that when this email comes through, it'll be identified. If it doesn't go directly to Rodney, somebody will identify it and send it to Rodney.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And again, check this and make sure it's actual size. I think it's hung up.
there you go.
Okay, and like Rodney showed, if you want to rename an image, if you only want to rename an image, you can rename any image by just simply right-clicking on this. And you rename. And it'll let you name this whatever you want. So if you want to, anytime you want to rename an image, that's how you do it. You just right click on it and hit rename, and you could type in anything you want, okay? Very similar to what you do on a PC. Okay, from here, I'm going to try to demonstrate how you would do this on Photoshop. So if you bring up Photoshop, I'm going to go back to the folder where I have the image that I want to work on. And this was the original image, the one at 24 megabytes. Okay, I'm going to bring that, just drag that into Photoshop. And for anybody that uses Photoshop, this is just a logical workflow that after you complete your editing on this thing, you're going to have a file like this, about 24 megabytes or whatever it ends up being. And then from here, you can resize it and rename it directly to what you want to end up sending in for a critique. So if you go just a second here. You go to File and Save As. It'll ask you where you want to save it, and in this case, I want to save it right back to the same folder that I started with. The format is JPEG. I started with a sRGB profile, so I'm going to leave it there. Now I hit save. This folder already includes the file that I named previously in the previous exercise. It already exists, so I'm going to say, let's replace that with what I'm doing here. And as you can see, you get a pop-up window that says JPEG options. And here's very similar to what we saw before. Here's a slider that you can use. And as you can see, it'll tell you exactly the size of the file that you're going to end up with as you use this slider to change the compression. So as you,
Sorry, Ken, I was just going to remark there that in order to get that that file size, you need to have that preview window, preview box checked. Otherwise, it doesn't show the file size.
yeah. So check the preview box and get down to a file size that is close to the 2 megabytes that you want. So this setting takes you down to 1.7, which is certainly close enough. So at a quality of 9, it gets you down to 1.7 megabytes. And if you click OK, okay. After saving it, here it is right here. I didn't see it first. We didn't rename it in Photoshop. So again, showing you the example of how to rename it here. Just right click and hit rename. And you can put in the appropriate nomenclature, which is the same as this other image that I had before using the Mac version. I could rename it again, but it's going to be the same as this. And it's going to tell me I have the same, I'm going to have the same name. So I'm not going to do that right here, but you can rename it with the appropriate nomenclature that you want. So again, in Photoshop, if you use Photoshop, it's probably the easiest to do your edits, complete that, and actually go through the renaming and resizing process of as part of your normal workflow while you're in Photoshop. That's probably the easiest way.
Ken, do you want to demonstrate the actual resizing of the image, particularly if you've got a very small image and you want to upsize it?
Okay,
Is there a
could do
difference
that.
between Photoshop Elements and just Photoshop?
Yeah,
The-
we're gonna get to elements later.
Oh, okay, because I'm looking at mine on my other screen and I don't see any of this.
Right.
Okay.
They are different.
Thank you.
Okay, maybe while I'm here, I can demonstrate how to provide a stroke or a key line.
Yeah,
Yes.
Okay,
and I would comment that the point with the key line is because it's going to be shown to the judges on a black background, you want to put one in if you have a bunch of black around your edges, because your picture is just going to fade into the background. You don't have to put a key line. And for instance, on this picture, it's not really necessary. It's a matter of choice. But so just be aware if there's a bunch of black around the edges, you probably want to do what Ken's about to demonstrate.
yes, and what Louise is saying, if this area was black, if this whole background was black, for instance, this is kind of how you're going to see, the judge is going to see it. This is black and the background is black, and you're not going to know where this image ends. So the judge is not going to be able to see how big or small the actual image is. And this is going to blend right into the background. And it's going to look like it has a whole lot of negative black space over here.
And
So
it would
that's a
kill the
per-
composition right away. You want the judge to see your composition. So,
Yeah, exactly. You want to be able to see where you ended the composition
Right.
here.
right.
Okay. So to do this in Photoshop, you need to create a new layer. So you go into layers, new layer, whoops. Okay. Go to layers, and then add a layer. Let me get rid of this, try to get rid of this, so.
Mine does that too.
Yeah, I need to
Tiny
get
little
rid of-
X straight up. Tiny little go up a touch.
I know, I can't hear
Right
this.
there, almost. You're right
So
there.
there's new layer.
Tiny little X.
Mhm,
Good job.
Okay, it's still hidden by all the faces over here, but if you go to the layers panel, and here, you could name this layer, but you don't really need to do this. You can call layer 1, hit OK, and you can see it put a new layer in here. Step 2 is to go to select, and you want to select the whole image, so select all. Okay. And then step 3 is to go to the edit. And if you look down, you can see something called stroke. That's the process that's the procedure to allow you to provide a stroke. Now, what will come up here is a color. This color will be whatever you used in your very last edit. Okay. And this is yellow, and I don't want to put a bright yellow stroke around this image. That wouldn't look good. So it allows you to change that. So if you click on color,
Where's white?
well, you can make it any
Line it
color
up,
you
okay.
want. If you want it white, you can click right here on and this. If I click here, it will be white. So it goes to a new white.
Okay.
But if I want to sample, if you click around here, you can the new color is right here. Can you see where it says new?
Yep.
You can click around here and determine what color you think would make the right or the most appropriate stroke. If I click here in the green, it's going to provide you with the green stroke. Now, I don't know whether this is the best or not, but I'm going to say that I like that. So I'm going to click OK. And you can see it comes up here. And if you like that color, you can just click OK. And if you go up to select and get rid of the selection, you'll be able to see the
Tiny little green.
stroke. Okay.
Yep.
Now, if you think that's too thin or too wide, you can change that. You can go back up here into edit and undo your deselect and undo your stroke and go back in and hit stroke again and see the width here. We're at 5 pixels. If you thought that was too narrow, you can go back in and let's change it to 8. And try it again, hit OK. Get rid of the, if you go to your, oops.
Deselect.
Good.
We can go to deselect. Usually if you go to the magnifying symbol, you can get rid of that, but this is another way. You can see now that it's a thicker stroke. So it's a kind of a iterative process. You can go through here at different pixels and pick out the right width of the stroke that you want. And when you're happy with that, you can go ahead and save the file like you normally do.
Yeah, at this point, you can also decide, you may want, after you've put in the stroke, you may decide that color wasn't the great choice and go change that as well. So
Yes, it's the same process. Again, you go back in and undo the last two processes that you went through, undo the deselect and undo your stroke. And go back to the stroke again. And it's going to bring up this little box and you can go back through the color and change the color by going back through and choosing if you want, let's say this color. You can go through and select that color. Hit OK. And here it is. You can, if you deselect the line, you can see it change the stroke color. So it's kind of an iterative process that you can go through, but that's how you apply a stroke.
Hey, Ken, quick question. This is in Photoshop, I know. Is there a similar process in Lightroom?
I'm going to show Lightroom and Elements.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but the thing that is similar here is Photoshop is pretty much the same whether you're on a PC or Mac. So Ken's
Yes.
doing a Photoshop. We're not redoing Photoshop on a PC. So these steps are the same.
It's
in
exactly the
Photoshop.
same.
Yeah. Nice
Okay.
work, Ken.
of course, it being Photoshop, there are other ways of applying a stroke, which some of you may be familiar with, but
Yeah.
this one is fine. But this is the first time I've seen this one.
Oh, yeah, you can also do it with resizing the canvas, but it takes a lot more guesswork than this,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Okay. I'm trying to think if there's Ronnie, if there's an example that I can use of where you need to actually upsize the image in
Well-
order to get 2 megapixels.
You got a little image somewhere?
Well, it doesn't matter whether you've got an image that needs upsizing. You can just show how to upsize it anyway.
Take your small one you just made and just put it a different, bigger size.
Okay, I could do that.
Yeah, there you go, 1.8.
Okay, let me open Photoshop again. Okay, I'm going to bring this one in. Okay, this one was 1.8 megapixels, and let's say I want to bring it up to
4.
2 or 4 or whatever.
Yeah, make it something that's visual.
Okay. If you go to image and image size, it'll bring up a window here. I'm sorry? Oh. And what I would do to upsize this is I would bring this over to pixels. And if I wanted to bring it up to, let's say 3 megapixels, I would select a dimension that's considerably bigger than what I have here. So I'm going to make this 15,000 pixels just to. And if this little link is clicked, it's going to bring the height and width up by the same proportions. Okay, so I'm going to click this.
Before you do that, Ken.
Okay.
No, you didn't want to do that.
Because it started out at 40. It's going to get gigantico.
No, I was going to say that you don't have I don't think you have the best option for upsizing selected, the best algorithm.
Oh, you're right. Let me undo this. I should show that.
What does that mean?
There are
Here,
different.
I'll show you in a minute.
Sizes.
There, this little box to resample. There are a number of alternatives here. There are alternatives for reduction, and there are alternatives for enlargement here.
Yeah. And
And
the best one is the for enlargement is the Preserve Details 2.0. I believe that's still the best one.
it's probably the best one. I don't think it makes that much difference personally, but that's something to look for, to use this resample and go through. If you're doing a reduction, and that's another way of reducing it, is to use this particular procedure and go to reduction.
Right.
But in this case, we're enlarging the image. So let's go to preserve details and say, okay, and let's go back and put in a number of. This is going to make it much larger.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, it takes a little while.
Right.
And you can see using preserved details, there's more processing involved, so it's taking even longer than it did when I used the other
Choice.
Yeah, the other choice.
Mhm.
So here is a much larger image, and now if I go to the process of trying to get down to 2 megapixels, let's save as. I'm sorry, I don't want to do that.
Mhm.
Okay, again, this. Sorry about that.
Mhm.
My wife is trying to call me. I'm probably gonna get in trouble for not answering it, but.
I might call you another name.
I know. So again, we're starting now with 11
Mhm.
megapixels, which is plenty large now to get where we want to be. So if I move this down. There,
So,
2 megapixels.
on the dot.
So again, the process is to go, if you have an image that's too small to begin with, you have to go to image size and resize it to a level that's going to be large enough to exceed two megapixels. And then go back into the same process to save as and move the slider down to the point where the final product is going to be close to or equal to or smaller than 2 megapixels. Okay. Click OK, and then it will save. So that's what you need to do if you're starting with a file that's too small.
Mhm.
Normally, you won't have that problem in most cases unless you crop down really small on an image. Then you might get a final cropped image that's too small for the critique.
Yeah, if you've got an image that's much below 2000 in width or much below 1100 in height, then you'll probably want to upsize it in Photoshop or something similar, because they do have very good algorithms for doing upsizing. If you just allow it to happen in PowerPoint and so on, it'll probably come out very noisy.
Now, Ken, you're using pixels. Do you mean megabytes?
Yes, he does mean megabytes.
Yes, megabytes. 2 megabytes is where you want to end up.
Right.
Sorry. Okay, I think that's all I have. So I'll turn it over to Louise, who'll show you how to do it in Lightroom
Mhm.
and Photoshop Elements. So I'm going to stop sharing.
Okie dokie. Let's see, this is the thing that always gets buried when I have this view. Ack. My problem is I have to have it on less than full in order to do my screen share. You'd think I'd know how to do this by now.
Yes.
Wonder where it goes when it disappears. Got any ideas, Rodney?
Well,
There's no screen share option right now.
are you seeing your controls at all? Your Zoom
I'm
controls
seeing
at all?
you, and I can see that it's recording and whatnot, but there are no controls.
No, I mean your Zoom controls at the bottom of your screen. Do you have those? That's where the screen share is.
Yeah, let's try this. Ah, okay, got one in the little menu. Okay, here we go. You are screen sharing. Okay, now you can see. I assume you can see my,
Yes.
okay, I'm going to do this from the library. You can also do it from develop, because really all it is in the library is selecting the image that we're going to fool with. Okay, so not, you can do it from either place that you are. So we're going to remember how to do this. Oh, okay. So we're going to go over to the print module, and I've already put this one on here, but it'll show up in white. And what you're going to do is you're just going to go down to the stroke border. And when you can click on that, when you click on stroke border, then you can see how many pixels or whatever that you want to make it by just using the slider. You want to just kind of make it proportional enough to make it not, to show from the black background. And similar to what Ken did in Photoshop, you pick the color by, you can just move the eyedropper around until you get colors that you like. For instance, we'll just pick arbitrary. Okay, so that takes care of the stroke border. And then you go down to, if you wanted to see how it looked on black, you could choose a black background just for purposes of checking it out. It only just makes another, just kind of gives you an idea. I don't usually really do that, but you can if you want to. So we don't really need the background color because it's going to show on black in PowerPoint. So then basically that's how you put the stroke border on. And let's see here. You can go down in the print job section if you wanted to change the quality or whatnot from here to switch it to JPEG. That's not usually what I do. I usually go over and you need to tell it to print to file, and then you would get the JPEG. So you have it under sorry, I'm jumping around a little here. You choose JPEG file where it says print to. You have a choice. You have a choice of sending it to a printer or JPEG file. So in our case, we're going to pick JPEG file. And then what you're going to do is tell it to print to the file. So when it does, it's going to ask you for a name, and you could put in the name that you're going to put it for the critique, but I'm not going to do it because you guys have already demonstrated it. So we'll just say this is going to be 2 for fun and save it. So that'll get it into a JPEG for you, and then you can change the JPEG size later. If you want to, you can go back in, well, you can use then the techniques that Rodney and Ken showed you for resizing with your operating system.
Cool.
So or you can go to where you saved it and well, that's pretty much what I just said. You can save it the way they've already shown you. I don't want to duplicate because we're getting kind of long in time here. So that is one, that's how you get the stroke border on in Lightroom and how you get it to save as a JPEG. And the saving as a JPEG uses the same kinds of boxes that you saw, where you use the slider, check the preview size, and when you get it to about the 2 megabytes, you say okay. So that's essentially that one. And then our other one is Elements. So in Elements, what you do is pick your image, and then you would make another, do Control J, get a second layer, and I named the second layer Stroke. And the way you get the stroke is you choose the rectangular marquee tool, and you would just do that, you know, select it. And then you go up here under, oh, I don't have it right. What did I not do? It's under, it's usually, it's stroke outline selection, but I must have skipped a step or I didn't undo something. Let's do it again. There. Okay, so now if we do this, it should work. And then you go to stroke outline. And then, where's my choices? It usually gives you a box. Oh. Nope, that's right. Okay, Louise. I've forgotten what I used to know. Okay,
Bottom is,
what? Help is welcome. Oh, here it is. It's on my other screen. I wasn't looking the right place. Okay, so there you go. So when you get in this, you'll get this stroke box when it comes out, and you can do the color picker has also gone to the other side. So let's just say we're going to make it gold. And then this one is, I made it super wide just so it would be really obvious for you to see where it is. And if you click OK, I think it makes a, supposed to make a border, which I obviously chose wrong. All right. I do not use this personally. Okay, so you do also have to choose that you want to be on the outside, make the opacity. Anybody have an idea why?
no, if you choose inside, it'll probably show, because if you choose outside, it's, the problem is that, you know, you've got a stroke outside, but the canvas isn't big enough to show it.
Okay, this is a big picture, so okay, so that put it on the, that put a tiny little one on the inside,
Yeah.
right?
If you do it on the outside and the layer is the same size as the canvas, it's not going to show.
I see. Okay, so anyway, the other way, this one was done with putting it on the outside. Okay, so I did one on the outside and one on the inside. But those are the choices. So that's essentially how you would do that. And then if you were saving it and wanting it to get to the right size, you save it as a JPEG. And then you say save. Clark will already exist. You want to place it? No. Well, maybe I should say yes.
Just change the name. Just change the name.
Yeah, well,
Add a 1.
okay, for interest, okay, so there we go. So this one, I had already resized it, so it's 1.5, but you can see it would do the same thing, you know, the same way it was on the others. And once you're happy with it, you say, okay. And there you go. That's essentially how you put the stroke on, and you would resize it in Elements. That's a speedy run through. Questions?
So Louise, just to clarify, so instead of using the export tool in Lightroom, you resize it in the print tool. Is that correct?
You resize it in the print module, and then
Module.
it'll go, yeah, back into your library or whatever, and then you do export it from
Okay, that
your
is
library.
where that's where I've messed up. So thank you.
You didn't mess up. I think I skipped it. So you'd go back to see it in library, say,
Yes.
and then from here, you would do your export and export somewhere. Here we go. Again, going to my other screen. And so this is where you go down to change the size.
So this is where I've gotten confused about where do I find 2 megapixels? That's where I've never been, or megabytes, I've never been able to figure out where it's the file settings. That's where
there's 2 ways to do it. Okay, you can choose it in file settings,
right?
and then if you do that, you change the quality to get it to, if you can say on here, limit 2000 kilobytes is 2 megabytes, right? So you can say that, but when you do that, it saves this particular image, say, as 1.4. If you go down here and use image resizing and you resize it by megapixels, then I did the first one, I went ahead and put 2 in here. And when you put 2 in here, it comes out to the same 1.4.
Oh, it does.
So here you can see it's going to still show 1.4. But if you do this and you resize this to export, yeah, then if you go down here, you can play around with it. Oh, and you can also rename it here.
Yes.
You got choices in renaming, which they've already gone over. So if you choose the megapixels and you just take a wild guess and try 2.5 or whatever, if I found that if I put in 3 here and exported it, now this one is going to come out to be 2.02. So
How about that?
So I would choose that one. So there's a little bit of the playing around, like what Ken was showing, how you kind of have to go in and out, trial and error. But it all depends on how big the image starts out in the first place. When you have some of these giant images, you got much bigger range of guesswork to do.
Okay,
So
great.
those are the choices. Does that make sense?
Yes. Thank you.
Penny, did your questions get answered about Elements?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I see a different box.
Okay. Which way are you going in Elements?
I took a picture of what I'm looking at on my screen, and let me pull it up. Okay. That's the box I'm looking at.
Hold still.
Okay. Now, Penny, what commands did you use to get to that?
I went
box?
into image and I went to resize picture. Right? Is that what it says? Let's see.
We're talking about Elements now.
Elements,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, Photoshop Elements.
Okay, and you went to what?
I went into image,
Image.
came down to resize,
Right.
image size, and then I get this white box. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
how do I make it smaller? I mean, I have one that has 44.6.
okay, so what if instead of that you say file, save as, tell it to save as a JPEG?
I did that, yeah. And then what
And
do
then
I,
you get this nice little slider, easy decision maker, and you slide it to get your
I
different.
don't have the slider.
Yes, you
You have
do.
to,
Well, if you do the through file,
yeah, you do this, the save as, you hit save, and then it opens that other window when it tries to save it.
see there? So, but you have to get it out of the Photoshop. You know, you need it to save as a JPEG.
Peg.
All right,
And I'm
save.
giving it another name for fun. And then after you click save, you're going to get the box.
Okay, save.
And since I already
Okay, I have this.
showed,
Oh, okay, I have the slider. Okay.
okay,
Yeah.
then you just make it be close to 2. And then if it's way smaller and you can't get close to 2, then you do the process of making it bigger, like what?
Well, what is the 2?
2
2
megabytes. It's
megabytes
Where do you get megabytes?
right over here. And
right. Okay, cancel.
Oh,
Then
it says
preview. You
2.7.
have to have the preview box checked, and then under that it says
Ah,
something or other M, which is
Check.
M stands for megabytes.
okay.
is your preview
I-
box checked?
I slide it to 2. Just-
You
it's
got the
2.7.
preview box checked?
You got it, Lowry?
Be right back out to shut a door.
Yeah.
Lowry, do you
Yeah.
got it?
Well, but this one shows the largest is just, what, 5? 1.5.
Yeah, sorry, had my
Yeah.
little thing on
Yeah,
there.
yeah, 1.5 is the largest. You couldn't get up near 2.
Yeah,
Right,
but that's
right.
because I already shrunk
Yeah,
this.
okay.
I could open a different image in here that's
Yeah,
bigger.
okay.
I mean,
I got you.
Laurie,
Well,
everybody's, some files, because of their content, are going to come up with very small file sizes on in megabytes, because they don't have a lot of information that they have to carry. If you have an image that's a black silhouette on a white background, it's going to come up with you're never going to be able to make it a big file size in as a JPEG, because it says, you know, this is black and this is white. It doesn't have a lot of information to carry. You know, if you have a full moon in a dark sky, you're not going to get a very big file size ever.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah, you just have to do it based upon your, let's see if we took this background one. How big is this guy?
Where did I save this? Where did I save how?
Yes, it's not happy. I guess I have to save it first, huh? Oh, well. Okay, so there we got to that one. Let's see how big this one. So this one, oh, it's the same. I've already shrunk these. I don't want to have to get, they started out at 60 megapixels, so I don't really want to start with the gigantico files.
Okay,
But you will get whatever size it really is, and you just use the slider to get down to
Yeah.
it. Does that make sense?
it's okay.
Where do you do yours, Lowry? Do you resize in Picasa?
No, I do it right here, but I do the old numbers.
Mhm.
Oh, doing the sizes, the dimensions.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay. We're trying to make it be kind of simpler because the dimension stuff can get really confusing.
Mhm.
What if I just have 1.7 now? I can't.
That's
But you can
fine.
turn it in at 1.7. That's
1.7
pretty
is-
darn
Okay,
close
because
to
I
two.
can't get to 2. It keeps.
Yeah, I know that some images will always have a very small file size. You will not be able to make them bigger.
Okay. How many pieces can we enter?
You can do a total of 7 if you also put some in the non-scored category, but the rules tell you how many in each category.
You have
So
two
as long as
pictorial
you've got the rules.
and one in each of the other
2
categories. So
pictorial. Okay, 2 and 1.
Monochrome.
one
And
monochrome,
one
one
monochrome,
special.
one special subject, and 2
One-
artistic expression.
No, one.
And
One
and
artistic.
when you say macro,
The definition is in the rules, just
Okay.
the same as all these other parameters. They're all in that
Mhm.
rules document.
on the specials now, you've eliminated, putting in there what the special was, the name of the special.
We don't include that anymore. You don't need to include that anymore. At the
Okay.
year end, you will have to add that to the title, but only for the year end. It doesn't matter for the critique. Within a particular critique, everything in the special subject is the same. So it's a waste of time putting it in there.
Makes more work for Rodney.
but he does such a good job.
He does, but we
Pat
don't
your
need-
back. I'm patting you on the back.
Thank you.
we don't need to burden him. But seriously, Penny, the best thing for you to do would be to download the rules, get them off the flyer or get them off the website and save them on your computer, because you'll need to keep referring to them as you do this preparation to make sure you're getting their spaces like Rodney and Ken show. There's a name and there's a space and there's a parens, and it's precise in order for it to go into his worksheet
Okay.
to get it ready for
There are all sorts of
PowerPoint.
different places and different that these things are displayed and sorted in different ways, and it's much easier if everybody uses the same,
Format,
sticks to the format, so then we can automate the process of generating all these other things.
Okay.
One more comment to make. Ken talked about what you have to do to get it sent by email. That's just for the Mac. With the PC, once you get it at your, whatever size you are, close to the 2 megabytes, Rodney's shaking his head, but you can
No.
generally just attach them and they don't change sizes in most email.
In most cases, the only problems I've ever seen with on PC with the sizes being changed are when I've emailed something from within a photo editing thing, like Picasa used to have a problem doing that. If you emailed from within Picasa, it tended to make to reduce the size of it.
But if you do it the way Ken said, where you make a file, and I think Rodney shared the same thing, you make a file specifically for the entries. The advantage to that is also that at the end of the year, if you want to enter the end of the year, everything you did will be available to you. You won't have to
Right.
search your computer to figure out what you sent in before.
Yep.
That is a point.
Yeah. Make it easier to find.
Yeah.
So Rodney, you were starting to say is there some problems with emailing from a Mac?
there was there was an issue. There's an issue in the
Apple. Mail.
Apple email that there is a thing which defines how it's going to size the image, and it's got small, medium, large, and then actual size, and you need to select actual size.
Okay, thank you.
Ken did demonstrate that.
Indeed, indeed. And I'm really, that was new to me, so it was worth me sitting here for this
Yeah.
great talk. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, well, thank you, folks.
Any more
Okay.
questions?
Okay.
Well,
Sorry
I
to
will-
rush through it. We were just getting kind of over time there, so.
Mhm. I will stop.
Can I
with it.
ask somebody about elements?
How are you doing, Rodney? If it's quick, we'll try it.
Yeah.
I want to know how to take a spot off of something.
Oh, that's an editing question,
Yeah.
not a
Oh,
critique
right.
question,
I
but,
just got this up and running yesterday and I don't know how to use it.
well,
so-
you
Yeah.
know how to use Google, right?
Yeah,
The-
So just type in how to remove a spot in Elements and you will get all kinds of choices of people, either tutorials or written form, whatever you feel most comfortable with. And you've got tools running down the left side for cloning, or one looks like a Band-Aid, and that one usually takes spots out.
oh, so it's like Photoshop, okay.
It's
Yeah,
very
yeah,
much like
yes,
Photoshop.
yes, yes.
Okay.
Very much like Photoshop.
Yeah,
Simpler is all.
Elements is basically a cut down version of Photoshop.
Works the same way.
I'm
Okay,
going to
thank
stop
you.
the
Okay.
recording.